This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Oh man, after 13 months of drama, the Greek Freak is finally on the move. It's also basically a national holiday for JVTs. The NBA draft is upon us. And speaking of drafts, we just found out moments ago, it turns out we will not be having a supplemental draft in the National Football League this year, despite Brendan Sorsby being available. Safe to say, we got a banger of a show on deck for you here on Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, SiriusXM Channel 158. We're live as always in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. He's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Stormy Buonantony. We'll get to the hoops and the rundown in a minute, but I do have to say, entering today, after having lost back-to-back show bets to you for the Stanley Cup Final, thank you, Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner. I finally won a show bet with you, having them to win the College World Series. Let's go.
I think you've been there before.
I can't because I haven't. I needed this, okay?
You did, definitely.
Aside from Avery Johnson, which is, do we even count that or not last year with our show bet in college football?
The council's still deciding.
Very dicey, but I'm feeling good today. Thank you.
Congratulations. Yeah, North Carolina, I'm sure you were nervous when they tied the series up over the weekend.
Didn't feel great.
Yep. You were like, oh, here we go. It's going to expire. But good performance from those Oklahoma Bats yet again, and here we are. But hard not to start with Brendan Sorsby. We'll have a little bit more on this later. But, you know, you read a little bit more. The note or letter from the National Football League to Brendan Sorsby came out as well, and I read through that. And you can understand some aspects of the NFL stance, but for the most part, it does seem somewhat hypocritical when you read some of the language in the letter, considering some of the players that are currently in the National Football League when words like integrity are thrown around, some of which, by the way, were involved in some gambling when they were in college just the last few years. So Sorsby's not going to be out there. As I think Mike Florio put it pretty well, somebody in the National Football League said he should serve a year suspension, and thus they decided not to hold a supplemental draft and punish him as so.
So I wonder what that means for him this year, right? Because that means no NFL draft. I mean, that means no NFL, and that means no college football.
I'll pump the brakes on that, though.
Hypothetically, because it does appear already litigation is on the way based on an immediate quote via Pete Thamel from Sorsby's agent that they believe this is against the law and will be fighting this in the CBA with the Players Association.
Yeah, Jeffrey Kessler, quote, "It is a violation of the CBA and the law. We will pursue this immediately with the NFLPA." So odd thing about that, I'm not good with legalese. He is not a member of the NFL Players Association. So don't know where the connection is there, but we'll find out. Although you can cash the bingo card of Brendan Sorsby suing both the NCAA and the NFL in a single year.
I do love as well all of the commentary coming out and be like, all right, man, the Canadians are ready for you. CFL available, UFL an option. To me, though, all that can do is hurt you, not help you, right?
Yeah, potentially. It depends on what he wants to do, obviously, for the year and how he's going to handle that. The CFL season is also already underway, so I don't know what you're going to do there. So that's probably not going to be the case. So Sorsby's in a tough spot, obviously, but the National Football League is a weird spot, and they like to make things up as they go. So who knows? Maybe they're going to put themselves in a spot legally where they can't get away with this, and they have to hold the supplemental draft. I kind of root for chaos, so hopefully that'll be the case.
By the way, we do have games in action right now as the World Cup rolls on. So from football to football, Portugal in action against Uzbekistan, and we knew Portugal needed to bounce back after that 1-1 draw against DR Congo. All of the talk around Cristiano Ronaldo being a shadow of himself, and is he the problem? Well, he's got 2 goals already in a 3-0 lead to begin this match. He has now scored in 6 straight World Cups, the only player ever to do so.
Yeah, the important note here being, too, that he was about 2-1 to score the first goal, and he does just that in the 6th minute. So Ronaldo, and you kind of expected it. That was the only thing that I actually had coming into today was I bet Ronaldo to have the first goal, because you figured, given the conversation and the way that these stars have been showing up, I mean, this has been the best part about the World Cup so far. The games have been great, but it seems like these stars have definitely taken upon themselves to try to one-up each other almost every single time they're out there on the pitch. We saw another version of it yesterday with the 3 big names between Mbappe, Messi, and Haaland getting at it once again. And then Ronaldo with the AI videos of him working at McDonald's and the thoughts of him not being anywhere near it. Like, this is, you figured, one of the spots against the lesser competition that you were going to feed him the ball as much as possible. And maybe a hat trick's in store for Ronaldo, too. And just goes back to, we'll have more on the Golden Boot later, but this thing is wide open despite the fact that Messi has 100% of his team's goals through 2 matches.
And also, just worth noting, apparently I'm the only person on the planet that didn't have the 3 stars yesterday with 2+ goals parlay, because those pictures were going everywhere yesterday. We'll talk about that more later. Will Harry Kane add to his tally as England is in action a little bit later on this afternoon as well? Okay, we have started the show in a very whirlwind-y way, but we do have a lot more to get to. And let's break this thing down like we always do. Time to run down the rest of the program.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is The Rundown.
I know you guys talked about it yesterday with the news that our NFL betting guide is officially out. We're going to get Burke's betting guide breakdown. Adam Burke, VSiN.com managing editor, he put this bad boy together, up from 94 pages a year ago to 110 this year. It is the most detailed, informative, and comprehensive guide we do. Excited to get his perspective, some best bets, and all of the articles you can expect in this year's guide.
Yep, check them all out. We did a breakdown of Adam's article yesterday on win totals and how often you can go over or under those numbers and how you can play those. We did a little bit on Zach's article when it comes to worst to first. We'll have more details on that with Burke when he joins us, and a lot of content surrounding and tying into the NFL guide. Pod to the Futures is all NFL outside of Giannis Antetokounmpo for one segment as we looked at the guide and some of the stuff provided there too. So it's very much worth your time. VSiN.com/subscribe. Check it out today.
And now I can officially give my reveal, what my best bets were in the guide as well. We mentioned already off the top that today is the day for the NBA draft. The Wizards are on the clock. Coming up in about an hour, we'll have Chase Hughes, covers the team from Monumental Sports Network, give us his insights on the number one overall pick, where as we look at the odds board right now, JVT, AJ DeBonta out to an $8 favorite to be the first player off the board, despite the Wizards themselves holding their cards very close to the vest. People trying to read the tea leaves after signing Trae Young to the full contract. What might that mean? You have been pretty adamant, very bullish on the Darren Peterson train. How you feeling right now?
Darren Peterson will be a member of the Washington Wizards by the end of the evening. I feel strong about it.
Still?
Really? I think he's going to get selected. We'll see.
I love it.
Mark has been wrong before, but we will see if that's actually going to be the case. And like you hit a key point. I think a lot of people are reading into the Trae Young thing. That was all expected. And yet the market freaked out after he signed something he was expected to sign outside of the actual monetary bottom line with what he got. It was expected he was going to resign. It was expected it was going to be a long-term deal. And a lot of people inside the NBA actually believe Peterson to be a 2-guard, not a 1, so he can fit next to Trae Young if that is the case.
This is just the tip of the iceberg of our NBA draft discussion. We'll get into more in the next segment, but we got to kick things off. Welcome to Miami. Bienvenidos a Miami. Let's go. The news coming last night. Giannis Antetokounmpo is taking his talent to South Beach. The Bucks trading him to the Heat in exchange for a package headlined by Tyler Hero. Milwaukee spurning an offer made by Boston in the process as well that included Jaylen Brown and a pair of first-round picks. You want to give out all the details?
Yeah, this is a pretty big trade, at least in terms of the volume that's moving back and forth here. So the Miami Heat get Giannis Antetokounmpo and Bobby Portis. The Milwaukee Bucks will receive Tyler Hero, Kel'el Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Cassiparis Yakuchonis. You just didn't want to say his name.
How'd you know?
2026 first-round pick this year. That'll be the number 13 selection in the draft later tonight. 2031 first-round pick, a 2033 first-round pick, a 2033 second-round pick, and a pick swap in 2030. So a lot of first-round selections. You get a lot of young pieces as well. Tyler Hero, kind of, I guess, the central piece. So we'll see. It should be noted that Milwaukee, it would seem, has not decided what they're going to do with these pieces that they have received from a player standpoint. There are reports that the Pistons really do want Tyler Hero. I think that would be a great selection for Detroit, or actually a great acquisition for Detroit. There was a report earlier that the Lakers are calling about Kel'el Ware to potentially trade for him too. So we do not know if those four will don Bucks uniforms. We do know right now, though, that the Bucks will be able to control where they ultimately end up, and they now have a bunch of first-round picks, swaps, and second-round selections to do with what they will as they move forward.
In terms of what this means for Miami in the near future, we saw the odds get cut down pretty significantly from 30-1 to win an NBA title all the way down to as low as 14-1. You see those Eastern Conference odds shoot down to now third on the board behind the Knicks and Celtics. How do you see them?
So I think it makes sense. I mean, and part of the movement, too, is they're just going to be a very popular team because Giannis is there, so you got to kind of short them to an extent. I think in the regular season, they're going to be a good team as long as they are healthy. That should be noted because Giannis has had health issues throughout the last few years of his career. He's also a 31-year-old power forward that plays pretty hard, so there's just going to be that regular wear and tear that is on his body. And generally in the NBA, Storm, if you look at some of the numbers, and these were posted last night too after the trade, 31, post 31 for power forwards in the association, not particularly great time in terms of their athletic lifespan. So we'll see if that is actually going to be something that continues with Giannis as well. But I think this is going to be one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. Bam Adebayo and Giannis Antetokounmpo is one of the best front lines you're going to see, along with Andrew Wiggins along the wing to protect that area. At the point of attack, Davion Mitchell is still on this roster. He's one of the better defensive guards in the NBA. So with those four, they're going to be great. If they re-sign Norm Powell, that's the only weak link. Yeah. And so that's going to be something that is going to be something they can overcome because they're going to be really good. I think one of the problems that you're going to run into is a couple of things. First off, where does the shooting come from? Even if you get Norm Powell back on the roster, you have some questions as to what the spacing is going to look like. People keep invoking the fact that Bam Adebayo was shooting more threes. He shot like 32% from three last year, though, so it's not like he's spacing the floor perfectly for you playing next to Giannis Antetokounmpo. And they're also hurting for ball handlers. With Jokic Jonas at the door, backup point guard, just general guard, you have a lack of those guys, so who's going to handle those duties? You're going to probably have to sign a couple of guys or find some dudes on the scrap heap to fill out the back end of your roster. I think they're going to be a decent regular season team. I think they're going to maybe push for a home court advantage, which would be like a 4 seed or something like that. But I think ultimately we'll see some shortcomings with this group offensively once we get to a postseason setting. But I don't think there's any question that they're going to be a very solid regular season team next year for sure.
It's one of those things where several spots need to be filled. You don't have a bench right now. As you said, you need shooters. And they only have $18 million to do it. And that's where you kind of get the crunch of what's this going to look like in the immediate future. From the outside looking in, I at least view this as something where I'm not sure what they're going to be this year, but in the next 2 to 3 years, as they have an opportunity to build out and build around him, I think that's when you would want to buy in on him. I was pretty surprised at how adamant Brian Windhorst of ESPN was this morning, listening to him on Get Up, and his reaction to where the odds have moved to. Quote, "With all due respect, that's laughable. Don't make that bet. The Heat are absolutely not the third best team in the East. They don't have anything close to a team right now."
I don't know about the anything close to a team, but I would agree. I mean, I think the Knicks are still better. I still think that if you look at the Pistons, if they potentially get Tyler Hero, the Indiana Pacers, if they're healthy, there's a lot of different options in the Eastern Conference that I would take ahead of Miami.
While on the subject of trades, because I'm not sure if this came up with you yesterday without me, a very Brady blockbuster in the NHL as well. Brady Tkachuk going to the Florida Panthers. We'll discuss that and some other NHL news later. Back to the NBA draft next.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We are back here on Money Moves as the countdown continues to the NBA draft coming up later tonight out there at Barclays. The first round of the 2026 NBA draft set to begin at 8 Eastern on ABC and ESPN. We will also have some specialty programming going on here at the network around the draft. And it appears, at least in terms of the market, that A.J. Debonsa is the guy to go number 1 overall to the Washington Wizards. He is now an $8 favorite to be that top overall pick. But you said it in the last segment. You are still not fully sold. You are on the Darren Peterson train.
Has somebody been selected yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Then I still have life here. I still have life. Let's hear from Shams yesterday, eloquently putting how the league is looking at this first overall selection from the Washington Wizards.
Malika, the league-wide belief right now is that BYU's A.J. Debonsa is who is being looked at strongest for that number 1 overall pick with the Washington Wizards. Wizards executives Michael Winger and Will Dawkins have done their research on the top of the draft. You think about names like Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer. They've also visited there. They've been looked at different points, but they are really narrowing on A.J. Debonsa because of his fit as a wing player, his flair, the passion he plays with as a fit alongside Trae Young at point guard, Debonsa at the wings, and then Anthony Davis at center.
It makes sense from a logical standpoint for the position. I think Darren Peterson fits as well, but the language is always pretty interesting. The league-wide belief is that the Wizards are strongest looking at A.J. Debonsa. Look, the whole thought here this entire time has been that maybe Debonsa is the favorite, but that is not an outright report saying that the Washington Wizards... Grant Afseth over the weekend was stronger. His report over the weekend was they are taking A.J. Debonsa. This is a report that just says, yeah, like he maybe is at the top of the board. It's very tepid. And I'm going to read you something here. Let's go back to 2022. You're a Charlotte Hornets fan. Sources. Scoot Henderson, or 2023. Scoot Henderson is gaining serious momentum at number 2 with the Charlotte Hornets in tonight's NBA draft. Hornets have been torn over the last week between Henderson and Brandon Miller. Team has final meetings today to settle on a decision. How have you liked Scoot Henderson's tenure as a member of the Charlotte Hornets?
Last I checked, it was never in doubt Brandon Miller.
Correct. So the whole point here being, we have seen this a lot. The Paolo draft was part of it as well. Like there are some weird reports out there, but let's just see what happens by the time we get to the draft later today. Obviously, from a pricing standpoint, I'd much rather be heavily invested at the prices that Peterson is currently available at instead of a 4-1, 3-1. But either way, I'll believe it when I see it, is where I'm at with this at this point right now. But it does look like AJ Debonsa is in the driver's seat, according to the betting market, to be the first overall selection.
Yeah, 7-1 that current price on Darren Peterson. We mentioned Debonsa's minus 800 price, up from around minus 425 that it was yesterday, earlier in the day.
I should add another note that does, I think, drive that price up. Initially, Darren Peterson was reported to not meet with Utah. He has allegedly worked out for them in the last couple of days. So I think that's also what drives that price up as well.
Yep, saw that report initially from Brian Wu. And with this news, though, or the assumption, correct, that AJ Debonsa is going to go number one, we have now seen that kind of straighten out, so to speak, the odds market for the top five at large, where we are odds on across the board now for all of the proposed top five players, where you have Debonsa, number one, who, as I look at the odds board, just upped from minus 800 to minus 1,000. Darren Peterson, minus 310 to go number two overall. Cameron Boozer, minus 260. Caleb Wilson up to minus 750 now to go four. And I think
honestly,
prior to that number one pick news, like this was the one that felt the most set in stone amongst the top five, at least on the surface. And then at number five, Keaton Wagler, now odds on at minus 130.
Yeah, that's so. I would say this again. It's an information-based event, so you're going to be laying into some prices, but it does seem pretty cheap, minus 750 for Caleb Wilson to go number four and for Boozer to go at number three. It seems very clear that the order and whatever it's going to be is going to be Debonsa and Peterson 1 and 2, Boozer at 3, and then Wilson at number 4. And so those are going to be the easiest selections to make. Crazier things have happened, but it does seem like those are nearly locked in stone. And from a pricing standpoint, it should actually be on par with where Debonsa is being priced right now. Because if he's locked in there, that means Peterson is nearly locked into 2, Boozer and Wilson. So I'm surprised it's actually still as cheap, if you will, for Wilson to go number 4. And you mentioned Wagler. That's going to be interesting because there was reports a couple of days ago that Braden Burries had really impressed the Los Angeles Clippers and that they were really looking at that spot. And with the move of Giannis Antetokounmpo, one would assume that the Clippers are not using that pick for Milwaukee or anybody else, so they're going to use it for themselves. But Wagler has, with his own actions, kind of solidified his spot in the perception of where he's going to go, canceling all workouts. He only worked out with Chicago and the Clippers. So it seems like he seems pretty certain that he's going to end up in that space. The other name that's kind of emerged is Michael Brown Jr., who is kind of on the fringes of where the Clippers might end up going there at that spot, or the next selection, which would be the Brooklyn Nets.
So as you mentioned, he's minus 130, Michael Brown Jr. plus 275, Darius Acuff plus 550, and then the aforementioned Braden Burries plus 750. I want to go to Acuff, though, because his position prop over or under 6.5 is interesting, at least based on all of the reports that have come out about who's going to go 6, and he hasn't even been in the top 2, really, of that discussion.
No, so, and this has actually been removed now that I'm looking at, I'm trying to find some updated numbers on Acuff. They've taken this down as of now. He's the odds-on favorite to go number 7, and like you said, and we've harped on this, there was a clip up on social media we put up yesterday, we talked about this yesterday, where Acuff was being priced made no sense. If you actually were following the news, what Wagler had done, what the Nets are allegedly looking at in that position as well, it didn't make sense that Acuff was priced 6.5 under minus 160, because really it had seemed there was one spot that he was going to land if he was going to go under 6.5, and that was with the Brooklyn Nets. But by all accounts, the Nets are focused on a couple of other guys and not Acuff. So if you're buying in on the information, Clippers never really all in on Acuff. The Nets really not in on him either. Shading 6.5 to the under on his position didn't really make a ton of sense. It seems like the Kings, who desperately want him by all accounts, are going to be able to get their guy at number 7. And I think it makes a lot of sense that Acuff at minus 140 is priced the way he is now. Draft position's gone, but he should be the odds-on favorite for 7 because he's not getting past the Kings at 7, and it doesn't seem that there is legitimate interest from 5 or 6 for him to go there either.
Any other positional props for guys that have come out that have caught your attention?
Yeah, I think there's a couple. I mean, so we can go to, out of all of the ones that we have here, I think there's a few that you want to look at. First off, let's go to Kingston Flemings, which is pretty interesting.
My guy.
Yeah, your guy. 9.5 is the draft position. Under -230. Over is plus. What are we looking at here? What I got
you were trying
plus 175.
You were trying to tell me he's not going to go top 10.
No. Let's. And he might not. His draft position is 9.5, so it's not like he is locked inside.
Juiced under. Come on now.
And so it's Darius Acuff, and how's that going to look right now? Well, here's the question though too: is just what's going to happen here? And now if you're Milwaukee too, because they control 10. And the way this is kind of breaking down, Atlanta was one of the teams that was allegedly going to take him, but that has seemingly dried up a little bit here. Atlanta is one of those teams that could sneak in and grab Ade Mara. That's a name that we have discussed quite a bit here on this program as finding his way earlier to be inside of the top 10, and that seems to potentially be the case. Brian Wu, in terms of his projected draft right now, has Flemings going to Atlanta at number 8, but also brings up that Ade Mara has also been the other popular name tied to Atlanta. So if he doesn't go there, I do wonder where Flemings is going to end up. The Mavericks have been tied to both Nate Ament and Braden Burries, and maybe not allowing him to drop from there. Burries also is viewed as a somewhat solid 4 for Milwaukee at number 10. So you do wonder if you see all of these guys and all these potential prospects, and if Kingston Flemings does slip to that 11-12 range, and if he's actually going to go over his draft position prop here, just given what could potentially happen when we're talking about 8, 9, and 10. Mm-hmm. Because there's been a lot of names that have been solidly out there. And in terms of actual information, the only information I've seen is that just Brian Wu mocks Kingston Flemings to the Hawks, but that there's actual reports saying the Hawks are interested in potentially having Ade Mara. So we'll see if that's actually going to be the case for him. And then you get to some of the noise. I mean, this is where it gets pretty interesting, right? Because once you get deep into the draft, it's hard to really project where some of these guys are eventually going to go. You know, we could talk about Kareem Lopez, for example, Mexican kid that's playing for the New Zealand team coming in. His draft position's at 15.5, shaded to the over at -130. So that would put you in the range of like Charlotte, Chicago again at 15, Memphis at 16, the Thunder at 17. The Bucks have been potentially looking at him at number 13, so you could see a situation in which Lopez goes under at 15.5. The Bucks are willing to take him there at number 13. But there's so much noise around all these selections, and you could really start to see some movement where it is kind of hard to pin where you're going to be with some of these guys. The Hannes Steinbeck kid is another one, too. Steinbeck was one that had allegedly been rising up draft boards. The Thunder potentially want some more size, according to that. But he reportedly has interest as high as Atlanta and Dallas. And Atlanta and Dallas could reportedly trade back. So if you look at Steinbeck coming out of Washington, his draft position at 15.5, shaded to the under at -240. But if a couple of teams are willing to trade back, I think you can maybe make the case that he goes over 15.5 at plus 185.
Real quickly, Portugal on the board again with a 4th goal. And so it looked like Ronaldo kind of geared the ball toward the net, and then it ended up being off the goalie's hand and in. But I don't know who they're ultimately going to credit it to. I think it's going to be an own goal off the body of one of the Uzbekistan players and then the goalie's hand. So interesting how that played out. But 4-0 now for Portugal. We mentioned it earlier. Cristiano Ronaldo with 2 goals already in this one as well.
They are charging it as an own goal.
Okay, good. So, yeah, that's kind of what the assumption was. And this is what you expected, I think, from Portugal after the first match, right? That they were going to come out and try to exercise some demons.
Well, it's also interesting because we had an interesting conversation about own goals on Friday with Eric.
Yes.
About how these are getting scored, so and the bets on these things.
Honestly, the conversation was so funny because in hockey, you don't credit an own goal like that. It goes off of whoever the last player was to touch the puck. And so he's looking at the score sheet and goes, OWN, who's that? Jeff Benson, what is happening here? Oh, no, own goal, that's a thing. So the more you know. World Cup, man, changing lives.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Treat as we welcome you back here to Money Moves, the all-new VSiN NFL betting guide out now. It's the earliest we've ever put out this bad boy. It's the most comprehensive and jam-packed we've ever had, 110 pages. Whether you're betting futures, win totals, division races, MVP, Rookie of the Year, whatever it is, get ahead of the market before training camp even gets underway. Inside, we've got breakdowns of all 32 teams, projected win totals, best bets from our VSiN experts, futures analysis, power ratings, and so much more. You can get it today with our football special for just $175. The sooner you sign up, the more value you get on the backside with full access to everything we do through every sport through the Super Bowl. VSiN.com/subscribe is how you can come join us. That's VSIN.com/subscribe. And this is important because this year, the NFL betting guide is not something a la carte. It's not something you can get separate. You have to be a VSiN Pro subscriber to do it. The man who makes it all possible each and every year, Adam Burke, our VSiN managing editor, on the desk with us today. How relieved are you to finally have this thing out into the world?
It's always good when we get to put a guide out, right? I'm very proud of the work that we do here at VSiN.com. Very proud of my team, Matt Devine, our guide editor, Zachary Cohen, our senior editor, Mike Dolan, one of our editors as well. I have a great team, right? I mean, you guys give me the credit for this on air, and that's cool, but I have a really great team who helps me out with this, including everybody who wrote something and contributed something for the guide. But you know, it's good to get it out early too. You know, I think it's very important to be able to get these things out early so that people can, you know, get out there, place their bets in the market. I know that people may be a little bit hesitant to, you know, tie their money up for this long, but now is kind of the time where you can get some really good prices, where you have an idea of what these teams look like, but a lot of people haven't gone into this market yet. So I think that's one of the big advantages of putting the guide out when we did this year.
Okay, so I want to put you on the spot here real quickly because you're giving all these flowers to other people. Do you have a favorite article not written by Adam Burke that you can give a little bit of extra credit to here?
Well, as you know, I'm very self-deprecating, so I wouldn't give myself credit anyway.
That's
but
fair.
You know what? I'm going to give a shout out to a couple of people here. One of them is John Hansen, who hosts Prop Points during the NFL season. A really, really good article. Obviously, he comes from more of a fantasy standpoint, but we know that there's a ton of carryover in terms of player props, right? And being able to, you know, kind of plot out your fantasy course, but then also bet into these player prop markets. So he's got 15 plays that he likes here on an individual player basis. So that's in there. And then also a shout out to one of your former co-hosts, Matt Brown, with a byline in this year's NFL guide, taking a look at, you know, rookie classes and what sort of, you know, target share, what sort of carry share they're going to get, how often they're going to play, because really, you look at the awards markets, it's about opportunity, right? And for offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year, stuff like that, you want to get into a situation where a guy's going to play in those key situations in the red zone to be able to put up numbers, stuff like that. And I thought Matt did a really good job of looking at recent history in terms of the offensive rookies and how that may shake out for this season.
One of my favorite articles that I read was yours, actually, on the win totals and how you play some of those. I reference it all the time, and this one had some good numbers behind it. So walk some people through a little bit about these win totals, how you play them, and there was an incredible stat that you had in there going back to the 2022 season about these teams regularly going over by about, 3.5 wins?
Yeah, so, you know, look, I think one of the nice things about all the different options that are out there now from a sports betting standpoint is that you do get a lot of these alt win totals. You get, you know, obviously alt spreads in games, alt totals in games, stuff like that. If you're really convinced about something, there can be a good opportunity. There can be some mispricings in these markets, and one of them is the NFL season win total market. If you look specifically over the last 2 seasons here, so 64 team seasons, 25 teams, either plus or minus 3.5 wins from their season win total number. That's some pretty good money you could make betting alt win totals by, you know, really pinpointing the teams that are going to overachieve or underachieve. Now, of course, as we know, injuries play a big role, and, you know, that's going to come into play, and there's really no way to predict that necessarily, other than to say that guys who have been hurt before, you know, have a higher probability of being hurt again, or maybe teams that just simply don't have a whole lot of depth. You know, if they end up with some cluster injuries at a position, that can be a really, really big problem. But, you know, the NFL is a league where we've seen teams go worst to first, you know, pretty much on an annual basis. You know, since we got into the divisional format that we're in now, those teams are going to exceed their win total expectations by a lot. So there were 12 teams last year that did it, 13 teams that did it the year before, 5 teams in 2023, 8 teams in 2022. So I don't know if maybe we can make a case, right? 13 teams in 22 and 23, 25 teams the last 2 years. Could we make a case that maybe this market isn't super sharp and it's getting a little bit harder because of the parity in the NFL, because of the variance level of the NFL? I think it's a possibility. I mean, we had 3 teams last year make the playoffs that had double-digit losses last year, or 3 teams that won their division that had double-digit losses the previous year. So it's a thing. You could turn around very quickly in the NFL. And so I think looking at the alt season win total markets, are a really good way to, kind of take some stronger positions on teams.
Mm-hmm.
Talking NFL futures with our NFL betting guide officially out now. Again, you can't get this a la carte. You have to be a full-time subscriber, VSiN.com/subscribe to get this 110-page behemoth, but there's so much great information on it. Adam Burke helped put this whole thing together, and I know that article in particular is a little bit... it's not specific, right? You're not looking at specific teams that you're targeting for that. It's more conceptual and just giving an approach to how you want to attack some of these markets. Was there a team in particular or two maybe that as you were going through some season win totals, you thought that could be a candidate at a nice plus money price?
So the ones that I really dove into specifically here for the guide were the AFC North. Not because I'm a Browns fan, because I didn't have many good things to say about the Browns, and the NFC South. And I think that both of these divisions were really fun to write because to some degree, I think they're pretty wide open, right? I mean, the AFC North, if Joe Burrow is healthy, changes the complexion of that division completely. The NFC South is just completely wide open, right? And when you look at, just the way that things could kind of play out here in both of those divisions, you've got multiple new head coaches in the AFC North, 3 of them, in fact. You got a new head coach in Kevin Stefanski down there in the NFC South. You have some recently hired coaches in Kellen Moore and Dave Canales. So you have a scenario in the NFC South where I think anything could happen, and it really wouldn't surprise any of us. But one team that did stand out to me, and I even wrote about maybe taking a 300-1 shot on Tua Tagovailoa to be MVP, is the Atlanta Falcons. I think the Atlanta Falcons are a team that could really take a big step forward. This is a great skill position group. You've got, I don't know if Penix will win the job or if Tua will win the job, but Kevin Stefanski has options here. And Stefanski's a guy, 2-time coach of the year, right? He had to be the company man, had to be the good soldier with the Deshaun Watson deal that I don't think there's any chance in hell a football mind, especially on the offensive side, as good as Stefanski would sign off on that deal. That's just what Jimmy Haslam forced on him. And he still found a way to get the Browns to the playoffs twice and maybe a third down stop against the Chiefs away from making it to the AFC Championship game. So I think this is a really, really big upgrade for the Falcons here. And I think they're the team that probably has the highest ceiling in this division. I don't know if Tyler Shuck is any good. If he is, the Saints had a great defense last year. But I think it's really telling when you look at the 23 people that responded to our spreadsheet, our division win total, or our division winners, our playoff teams, all of that. 7 on the Saints, 6 on the Bucs and the Falcons, 4 on the Panthers. So not really much of a consensus there, whereas every other division, had a pretty strong consensus.
It's funny you say that. I brought that up to Mitch today. We recorded Pod of the Futures. We did an NFL special for the guide, and that was one of the things that I invoked was you look at the selections for this division, and it tied me to Atlanta because from a pricing standpoint, and this is why I'm on Atlanta as well, they're being priced as clearly the worst team in that division, and I just don't think that's the case. I think these teams, if you throw all 4 of them in a hat and pull one out and they tell you, hey, here's your division winner, I don't think there's a single team that you would be stunned by that won that division and went on to maybe win a playoff game.
And look, we do have Steve Makinen's projected lines in the guide for each team as well. We have 2 pages for each team in this guide. So we've got schedule breakdown, Steve Makinen's numbers, and then we have a lot of the written content with our 3 burning questions and, of course, a pick for every team. According to Steve Makinen, right now, the way that things stand, the Falcons are only favored in 2 games. So that's kind of the reason why the projection is maybe a little bit lower on them. But when you look at some of their games, 2.9 point underdog to the Saints, 1.7 to the Bears, a lot of games hovering in that field goal range. And I think that's why, circling back to the win total article that I wrote in the guide, I think that's why we get some of these teams that are plus or minus 3.5 wins, because we have a lot of these lines that are, 55-45 types of games, maybe 60-40. One team, multiple teams are going to overperform that projection. And so that's why we get some of these teams that are so far off their win totals. And I think the Falcons can be one of those teams.
My husband, who you hang out with on a regular basis, Chris Norman, going to be very frustrated with that breakdown.
That's fine.
You guys like the Falcons?
Is he watching?
Oh, I don't know.
He might not like either.
Sometimes he does. He has it on while he's working.
I think that team might finish last in that division.
I think so, too.
Their offense was really bad last year. The running game was great, but as much as I am a Bryce Young truther in the sense of people called him the greatest bust of all time, he seems to very clearly have a ceiling, which is I think long-time backup quarterback in the NFL, but there's no dynamic, explosive element to that offense that's really going to hold him back.
We'll see, okay? Let us not forget they are the defending division champs, okay?
They dominated.
Sorry, remind me, there were 4 people who picked the Panthers to win the NFC South. I believe you were one of them.
And?
No bias in there
I don't
at
know
all?
what you're talking about.
No bias?
That actually is a great point, though. Not that. That is a great point that we have the chart out where every single VSiN host and analyst makes their pick on division winners, who's going to make the Super Bowl, who's going to win the Super Bowl. Let's get your takeaways from that chart when we return.
There was one I was stunned by.
Plus, massive news in the NFL supplemental draft world we need to discuss as well.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Portugal putting on a show here against Uzbekistan, 4-0 in the 80th minute as we roll along here. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel back here on Money Moves from football to football. Continuing our NFL and NFL betting guide conversation with VSiN managing editor Adam Burke, hanging out with us as we go. Before we went to break, we were talking about this wonderful chart we have as a part of the NFL betting guide where every single host and analyst made their picks on who was going to win each division, who was going to make the playoffs, who was going to come out of the AFC and NFC and ultimately win the Super Bowl. What were some of your biggest takeaways from that document?
I think first my biggest takeaway is Portugal is the Falcons and Uzbekistan is the Panthers, right?
Oh, come on.
All right, there we go. So a few things I noticed I think were pretty interesting here. And obviously I don't want to give it all away, right? I want you to go and become a VSiN Pro subscriber, get the guide. And look, maybe you don't want to lock up for the football special yet. We still do have the $9.99 intro special over at vsin.com/subscribe. So it's basically like paying $10 to get the guide and then everything else that we do for the next month. But a couple of things that kind of stood out to me in terms of the picks that a lot of people made here. A lot of love for the Buffalo Bills. A lot of love for the Buffalo Bills. 20 of 23 people taking them to win the AFC East. Now, I don't know how much things change going from Sean McDermott to Joe Brady. I really don't know, right? I mean, kind of feels lateral at best. I don't know that this team really got that much better during the offseason, but apparently I, along with, a lot of other people, just believe that maybe the Patriots were a little bit of a fluke and that the Bills are going to be the team that, really steps up there in the AFC East. And I believe you wrote that division, did you not?
I did. One of my burning questions is actually, does Joe Brady actually make the Buffalo Bills better? Because, you're talking about an offensive coordinator or a member of the offensive staff going back for a while now. He was also the full-time offensive coordinator for an offense that did not have a 1,000-yard receiver each of the last 2 years. I think that there is, and I'm with you. I mean, if your entire thing here is we've got to move on from McDermott, we can't be a part of this. We've got to turn a new leaf. Then getting the guy that's been on the staff for like almost 4 years is really going to do that for you here. I think there's really some flaws. And one of the things, I think one of my little favorite nuggets that I dug up here, because one of my other questions about Buffalo was, what do all the changes in personnel and staff do to their defense? They lost over 2,600 snaps from that defense last season. And a lot at edge. Joey Bosa, AJ Epinesa, cornerbacks Tre'Davious White, and Taron Johnson. They tried to supplement that in the draft, but that means a lot of unproven talent on the back end of this roster at those positions. And that was a team that finished dead middle if you're talking about opponent expected points added per play. So full disclosure, I picked the Bills to win the division because I was more anti-Patriot than anything else. Right. But I envisioned the Buffalo Bills. Like, I don't know if it would be a shock if they were to just win 10 games and win the division, considering the regression signs for the Patriots and some of the things I think you might be worried about. And keep in mind, with all those changes on defense, you're also switching schemes. Jim Leonard's coming in and going from a 4-3 to a 3-4. So there's so many changing parts there that I do think that this could be a season in which they do win it, but still it's only going to be like 10 wins that gets it done.
And I think it's a really good illustration of, first of all, we had a lot of different people. I think 5 or 6 different people putting together division previews for us, right? So we got a lot of different philosophies, a lot of different mindsets, a lot of different thoughts, but also, you may be down on the Bills a little bit, but the Patriots are also playing a dramatically more difficult schedule this season, right? And that's one of the side effects of finishing in first place. One of the reasons why I didn't really like Carolina is because, the way that the schedule is set up, you play within your own division, obviously, all 6 games. You play 2 other full divisions, so that's 8 more games. Your other 3 games are against fellow first-place teams. So that's one of those things where the Patriots, maybe they do get better, right? Maybe Drake May actually does follow up last year's really strong season with another good one. but the schedule is so much more difficult. And so when you're able to dig in a little bit and kind of, look at each team sort of in a vacuum and then also compare them to the division as a whole, I think that's one of the most valuable parts of this guide is being able to get the internal perspective of a team, but also how that impacts everything else with a team in terms of their playoff chances or division hopes.
And to add some context to the Patriots real quick, Stormy, you look at a couple of things from last year. The Patriots faced just 2 teams that finished better than 14th in opponent expected points added per play in the regular season. Remember, Drake May then on the postseason run, all 4 of opponents finished 7th or higher, and as a result, his completion percentage dropped to 58%. He threw 4 interceptions to 6 touchdowns. He actually fumbled the ball 7 times, if you remember, and their scoring average went to 14 points per game. So it really got
They won in spite of him.
Yes, they won in spite of him in the offense. And the other side of this, too, is if you look at last year, one of the more incredible numbers, they played a single opponent that finished higher on offense than 13th. That is insane when you look at their level of production. And like you said, it is a big step up in competition. When you look at the teams that they are playing this year, they're going to have 6 contests against foes, which finished last season 10th or better. 2 other opponents on their schedule finished 11th and 12th, respectively. So this is going to be a very big step up in competition for both sides of the ball for New England.
Foes, good word. And it wasn't just that it was an easy schedule for New England last year, period, right? It was one of the easiest we have seen in modern football history from the New England Patriots, going from that to now a first place schedule. I like the way that you set that up, though, about the burning questions. That is a good reminder. Part of the theme of this year's NFL betting guide is you go through the previews for all 32 teams. There are several burning questions for each team, breaking them all down in addition to the ways to potentially play a team or play a division. I have a burning question about what's going to happen to Brendan Sorsby now in 2026, because we get the news about an hour or so ago, Adam, that the NFL has declined to hold a supplemental draft this year after everything that's gone on with him suing from Texas Tech, the NCAA, coming out of that, then deciding he wanted to enter the supplemental draft and go to the NFL. Now with them declining that opportunity, is he going to litigate again? According to his lawyer, it appears that's what he's going to do and sue the NFL, hoping to get support from the NFLPA, even though he's not even a member of the NFLPA to this point. There is a lot going on with this thing. What was your reaction when you saw that news come down this morning?
I haven't read the letter yet. Was it sponsored by DraftKings or Polymarket or anything? Do we know that yet? Look, I think JVT said it really well in the first segment, right? There are guys in the NFL who have gotten popped for betting or have done things that are even worse than betting. So, look, I think what would have been really, really interesting, what if there was a second player who wanted to declare for the supplemental draft, right? Because the thing about the release that they had, when I did kind of, read sort of a summary of it through social media, was that Sorsby was the only player who applied for the supplemental draft, right? So if somebody else had, for whatever reason, would they have taken out Sorsby's transgressions on them, or would Sorsby have had the opportunity? We'll never know, but I don't think the Browns were going to take him anyway, so I don't think it matters that much to me. Maybe the Jets would have, but, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like everything in sports is a legal battle nowadays. Just absolutely everything. And, you think about it from a college standpoint with the NIL and all those kinds of things, and now everything in the NFL and, all these different litigations with the prediction markets and the sports books. It's just, and I wish we could just go back to enjoying the leagues and the games for what they are.
Yeah, I think that when you look at this for the supplemental draft and what they've done with Sorsby, I think it's kind of bunk, to be quite honest with you. And to actually put some words or some names behind this, remember Keyshawn Boutte bet on LSU games in which he played for LSU. Sorsby, of course, didn't play in any of the Indiana games in which he wagered. Boutte was never punished in any way. And then remember, Saints quarterback Hunter Deckers permanently lost his NCAA eligibility because of gambling on Iowa State while he was on the roster. He, as Florio puts it really well, his entry into the NFL was not delayed in any way, shape, or form. And where you lose me on some of this is the wording in the letter that he gets. At the end of the letter, when you look at all of this, it says, as Commissioner Goodell has emphasized, participation in the NFL is a privilege that carries with it significant responsibilities, including accountability. By all accounts, you're a talented player with the potential for future success. We encourage you to focus on preparing for the 2027 NFL Draft. You lose me when you talk about the integrity of the league and you talk about accountability and how it's a privilege to play when, like you've mentioned, Rashee Rice, I watched the video of him a couple of weeks ago running out of jail because he just got done and he didn't want to talk to anybody, right? I watched the Kansas City Chiefs wear that shirt that said free number 4 after what he did. And this is just one specific example, but it rings hollow when the NFL invokes these things, especially when we're talking about your partnerships that you already have. it's interesting when they decide to take a stand and when they don't. And for whatever reason, they're deciding to do it here with Sorsby, which to me just looks, I think, on the surface asinine.
In my brain, I think that it has to do with the NFL's relationship with the NCAA and it being essentially a feeder league to the NFL, and knowing all of the changes that are going on already with college football and NIL and the lawsuit that they put initially on the NCAA, Sorsby, that is, and his team, to make sure that you're maintaining that relationship as much as possible. And if the NCAA decided that this was their rule, they want to try to keep that as copacetic and cohesive as they can. At least that's my 2 cents on them.
But they didn't do it with the two other players we mentioned.
But that was years past. And so I think this is so fresh and so big in the scope of college football and national that it's a little bit of a different situation.
So, in other words, we all agree the NFL's just making it up as they
Correct.
go along.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And also in the letter to Sorsby that's been put out there from the league, quote, your petition filed 3 business days before the deadline without any supporting information or documentation, and only after abandoning your recent litigation efforts to avoid NCAA sanctions does not provide a basis for the league to alter those plans. And I think that just, again, supports what I was just saying, is
I got something to
has
say.
to do with early relationship with the NCAA. All right, you hear the music. We got to take a break, Adam. You're awesome, as always. Thank you so much for doing this. We appreciate it. Get the NFL betting guide. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber today. VSiN.com/subscribe.